This is Duke University.
My name is Christina Plante. I work in the Career Center. I'm an assistant director of career services, and I work with all undergraduate students, but I also focus on first years and sophomores. I actually started out in Duke in the Pratt School of Engineering, so I have worked with engineering master's students for a few years before I transitioned over onto the undergrad team. But just a reminder, today's session is recorded, and hopefully that won't be a problem for you, but that's just so we can have other people kind of review this later and kind of learn mind mapping as well. And for this session today, what we'll do is go over why mind mapping is important and how it could potentially help you. And then we'll walk through an example that I made of myself. So hopefully I can get to know you better, you can get to know me better, as just one way of looking at how to do a mind map. And I can show you some other examples besides the one I created, just to kind of get your juices flowing with that. And then finally, we will go through the process of making one. So hopefully you'll leave here today with the beginnings of a map where you can feel like you can really expand on it. So any questions about that before I kind of jump into why mind mapping? Looking good. Okay. So mind mapping helps you get unstuck, and it uses free association of words to open up new solutions and possibilities of your life. So a big part of it is kind of removing judgment from ideas. Sometimes when we're brainstorming, we might feel filtered in what those ideas might be. And so the idea of this is to kind of be more stream of conscious, whatever comes to mind, let's start to generate some ideas. So it bypasses that inner logical verbal censor. And it's almost like a next level brainstorm. So looking through research, we found some students who maybe brainstorm in a typical way might only come up with 7 options, right? But using mind map, you might come up with more like 25 plus kind of ways to think about something. So the hope with that is it gets you moving in a lots of different ideas and directions. Okay. So, and the other thing that we talked about is more of that meta level. So how can we make connections between these big themes that we might have? Because I feel like usually we're looking at things in small buckets or pockets. But then how do those buckets communicate with each other, or what can we learn from each of those? Okay. So thinking about how you will set up your map, I'm going to show you how to do it through MindMeister. But you can also go ahead, whatever materials you need where you are, you can go ahead and collect those. If it's paper, if it's pencils, pens, markers, whatever you want to do to kind of start thinking about how you want to actually physically draw your map, you can do that as well. So as I kind of go through my example, you can start thinking through what might be a good method for me to do to carry this through. All right, so what I'm going to do is share my screen and we'll go through the mind map. All right, can everyone see this okay? Okay, so this is MindMeister. Yours might be blank, so you might just have a field in the middle here, and that you can type into. Know that if you click here and you hit tab, you can kind of create a new section, And then same thing with these. Once you have these, you can hit tab again and it'll keep going, breaking out into different bubbles. All right. And then if you want to draw connections between like kind of two sections, you can use this button up here. So if I wanted to connect health to working with children, I could do that as well. And there's also this cool little sidebar. This is where I got those fun images. You don't have to do that. You can just kind of switch colors or just type it out. But there's this little wand here that if you hover over like a topic, you could click this and it's going to generate probably like a volleyball example, right? So that could be fun to play around with too. And another thing that you can do when you're done is this is the download button. So it has you export it. You can export it in like a PDF, in a Microsoft Word, or whatever format works for you. But it actually will do like an outline. So it captures all of the specific words and things that you wrote as well in a different way. Trying to think of any other quick tips for MindMeister. Anyone who's used this before, do you have any other suggestions on what might be helpful? Okay, if not, feel free to go ahead and play around with it. And what I'll do is walk you through a little bit about me and some of the things that I put on my mind map. All right, so we're gonna go to this slideshow. Okay, so I'm gonna start with health and wellness. So you'll see the first ring of items that I put around myself. They don't necessarily they're not necessarily one topic, right? It's not all like subject areas. It's just things that came to mind when I thought about me, and things maybe like experiences, things I liked, interests, maybe like a mentor or a person who really impacted you. So the sky's the limit for kind of what comes up for you when you're doing that first round. But health and wellness has always been a big part of my life. I started playing sports really young, did a lot of competitive volleyball, and I still play volleyball, but I do more sand volleyball right now. And I also got into some yoga, biking, and hiking. So being active and being well was something that was always important to me. And so I felt like I needed to include that in my story, in my map. The next thing that came up for me is event planning. So when I was younger, I used to work for my aunt who was an event planner. So in the summers, I would help her do a lot of the weddings, baby showers, parties, you name it. And I really found that I enjoyed organization. I really liked the detail-orientedness of that work and how my aunt was working with clients to kind of meet their needs and make them really, really happy and satisfied with the work that they were doing. Next, English. So I always loved reading, and in college, I actually ended up minoring in English, but there was something about reading and escaping into a story. And I really enjoy hearing people's stories, interpreting stories, and I found it was a really great creative outlet for me that I just always kept gravitating towards. And I felt like my skill set in that area was also high. So I was excited and interested in kind of jumping into that space. So environmental science. this was something that came up. I took a class in high school, and I was just all of a sudden faced with, wow, what's sustainability? How are we protecting our earth? What's our carbon footprint? And I really enjoyed the science investigative nature of environmental science. And it also just helped me see how one person could make such an impact in the world and what you're kind of leaving for the next person. So I really thought this was going to be an area too that I might have explored more in college as a potential major or minor. So I didn't end up doing that, and I'll tell you why later. Okay, so I also joined Alpha Phi Omega, which is a co-ed community service fraternity. So I went to NC State University. I know Duke has a chapter as well. But this was such a great experience for me. Fun fact, my parents actually met in Alpha Phi Omega when they went to school, and then my sister was part of it when she went to college. So I felt like I had to join immediately, and I was really glad I did. It gave me a really great exposure to leadership roles, to getting involved in the community. And this is kind of where I also fell in love with higher education, because we were doing a lot of work with the university. And I got to experience a lot of what was going on in a college environment. So first year college is where they put you at NC State if you have no idea what you want to do or no idea what you want to major in. So this was me as a first year trying to figure out what do I want to major in, how do I want to make an impact in this world. And this was a program where I had to do self-assessments. We did like the MBTI. We had to do our values and understand our strengths. And I remember all of my friends around me being super frustrated and bored by this process. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. So I jumped in and went to a bunch of forums, and I liked learning about myself, reflecting, and I found that I really connected with my advisor, my teacher for this program, as someone who was one of my mentors throughout my college experience. So that will be a theme too of connecting with teachers, connecting with people in higher ed that I just really wanted to be like, I guess is a good way to put it. All right, so I also love working with children. I would babysit a lot, and for a while I thought I might be a teacher or work with younger children. And I just enjoy seeing people grow and develop. And so this was another big part of, there's something there, right? What could that look like for me? Okay, so we land on psychology, right? So when I was doing my undergrad, going through first year college, I was basically deciding between environmental science and psychology. And I ended up majoring in psychology because it matched my skill set a little bit better than a harder science did. I also was super interested in a lot of the topics, a lot of the courses. When I was reading them, I wanted to take everything. And I joined a few experiences here. You see, I have like a nonprofit behavioral health clinic. I did an emotion research lab. So this was me kind of deepening my knowledge and understanding of psychology once I had kind of chosen that as something I wanted to pursue. And you can see here, you can build out your map from those different experiences. So keep going with whatever is coming to mind as you're brainstorming. And then from that, so when I was interning at the nonprofit behavioral health clinic, I was doing a lot of the office work. So I was checking in clients and making sure everyone was going back to see their therapist. And that was when I realized I want to be the person in the room. I want to be the therapist, instead of kind of working at the front desk. That's kind of the work that I'm gravitating towards, and I find myself wanting to work with people. So when I was when I gosh, I guess this was my junior year of college, I realized I wanted to go to grad school. So I applied to some counseling programs. I did apply to a few K through 12 programs, but then I got accepted into a college counseling program, which was a great fit for me, and that was at UNC Greensboro. So when I was there, I fell in love with career counseling. I did an internship at the Career Center at UNC Greensboro, and thought it was just such a good mix of that teaching, of event planning, of working with people one-on-one, seeing them develop. So it really helped me kind of bring all those pieces together. And so I kind of kept following that. And my story's not over, right? It's still growing. So thinking through this, what might be some other next steps, or how could I take working in higher education or working in counseling in different ways. So that's just kind of an example of how I've connected some of those pieces. All right. And then I drew some cool lines between these different things. So these were my two majors I was deciding between. This was higher ed here. A lot of things went back to counseling, which is kind of what I ended up focusing on. But what else? What are some other connections here? Event planning. I did a lot of event planning with Phi Omega. Definitely wanted to make an impact. So impact with environmental science and counseling. So this was a good way to help me kind of connect some of those things that I've been looking at. Okay. So I know I just went through a lot of information, but what are some of your thoughts after seeing this information kind of presented in this way?
I feel like since you kept it pretty broad and keeping it to like just one or two words, it was easier to see the connections between each of them, because I feel like I focus on the specifics.
Yeah. So, right. So you can go as broad or as specific as you want. But if you're like, ooh, where, higher ed, I guess that was pretty broad, but, maybe it was in a lot more things than I thought it was. Yeah. What else? Any other insights?
I'm just wondering because I think this is pretty useful. And I think like once we made it on our own, we'll be able to draw connections. Because sometimes what's harder is once we identify maybe skills that we have, things that we like doing, our personal interests, the hard thing to do, at least with career exploration, is how do I put all of these points together in order to figure out what I really want to do? And so I don't know if you have found yourself in that place, probably you did in the past. So I'm just wondering if there are any tips, like once we start making this, will it become clear, or is there something that we can apply once we start building sort of like our own map in order to realize how to put all of those dots together?
That's a great point, and definitely. So that's a great segue into moving into making our own maps. But sometimes those themes and connections might not be clear to you now, but as you are going through the map making process, you start to kind of see them happen. So that's the one part about this, is there's no perfect way to do it. and there's no right way to do it. It's more of getting it down on paper and then starting to kind of work with the kind of puzzle pieces that you've put out there, right? So we can definitely jump in and work through it, and then we can kind of do some reflection and think through what might be some new things that you found out. Great point. Okay, so let's jump into making our map. So a few ground rules that I will set, and I've already mentioned this, but this is not meant to look a certain way. So it's not going to be perfect, and just kind of go where you feel like the map is taking you. Also, get rid of all judgment, and it might not make sense as you start, but as you go through, you might start seeing things popping up. And yours doesn't have to look like mine. I'd like to also mention that. I did find a few other map examples. This is a very simplistic one. And then further down here, we might have a more detailed one. So, and this one's looking specifically at fashion. So they went into like boutique, accessories, education. So this is another way you could do your map if you wanted to dive into a certain area. And then this one's great too, right? This is more just feels like it just jotting down a few things and circling them and making tons of connections where you see fit. So I wanted to make sure you kind of can see that too in case one of these other ways resonates with you. All right. So is everybody ready? Does everybody have their materials? Good to go. Give me thumbs up. Yes. Okay, great. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put yourself in the middle. So you can say me, your name, whatever you want to put in the middle. And then we're going to have 3 minutes to come up with that first ring of ideas around you. Okay. So I'm going to put on a little timer. Let me get my phone out. Timer, 3 minutes. And I'm going to play a little bit of music too. So first part is done. Does anybody need more time? Feel like you got a good first round on there? How was that? Was it easy, difficult? Not really sure where it's taking you quite yet. Okay. All right. So what we'll do another round. So now I want you to go through each one of your buckets and kind of go into them deeper and create more subsets of those. Okay, I'll have a little bit longer for this round. We'll do about 5 minutes. And then we'll have one round after that, kind of connecting the overall, all of the pieces together. Okay. Sound good? All right, so we'll do five more minutes. So that was the end of 5 minutes. How are we feeling at this point? Do you have enough time to kind of work things through? Checking in. Okay. Not much feedback. Hopefully that means you're still working through things. Good deal. Yeah, and this is a process, right? So this is a quick kind of version of it. I found it helps a little bit when it is quicker, so you're not maybe overthinking it. But you can definitely fine tune and go back and make more of those connections. So for this last round, I'll give you about 3 minutes and you can kind of go through the broader themes that you have and kind of do this tool and kind of draw those connections where you see them. Okay. So 3 more minutes. All right. That's the end of our 3 minutes. Okay. So now we're going to do a little bit of discussion and debrief from the process you just went through. So did anyone have anything that they want to share that they discovered about themselves through this process?
I found that it was easier than I thought to make the connections. Like when I first started typing, I wasn't really sure how I was going to connect it all, but then once I started adding the arrows, it was easy to see how they were connected.
Great, great, right. So when you're going through it, you're like, this isn't going to make any sense. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, that actually kind of relates to that, which kind of relates to that. And sometimes it just takes a little bit to kind of see it all together. Great. Anyone else?
I guess I sort of made a bigger bubble from the smaller bubbles because I used to have, oh, let me just pull mine up, I guess. Yeah, I used to have my like writing, like the radio and sort of journalism as separate categories, but then I just sort of combined them into this huge blob of like telling stories. So I thought it was really helpful to see how closely they were like connected together.
Right. So maybe like storytelling is more of the umbrella or the connection than the other subsets are. Yeah. Oh, that's a great insight and realization. What else? Yeah, I like seeing the different variations because sometimes it's like, oh, I'm going to have everything in one blob. And then I want to have this other blob over here. Okay. Well, did anyone have any new ideas that you generated or anything that kind of surprised you as you were going through that process?
I think I realized that, yeah, sort of like once I've done it, I think that some of the things could be reorganized again.
Yeah.
Bernie said, and so because I realized that some of the things are things that matter to me, or that I feel interest about, but some others are more like skills that I have and that I enjoy doing. And so I think I could reorganize some of those and put them together, just in order to make up more space and then probably think about something else. And also I think that at some point I felt like I got stuck because it's like, okay, I have all of this and they relate in like these ways, but like I don't really know what to do with them. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Right. Well, and it might be now that you have those ideas and you know they connect in these ways, you kind of think about, okay, how can I find out more? What information do I need to know to kind of make a next step or make another decision? And maybe that is doing some research online. Maybe it's talking to someone in a particular area to help kind of see those connections. Maybe it's trying something, you're doing an experience where you're able to jump into that as well. But I think you brought up a great point in terms of you can have different versions of your map, right? Like this could be the first one, but now you're like, ooh, actually, I want to take out these things and work on those and then see what happens with those connections. And then it could also be like you're noticing you put a lot of skills in that map. So maybe you want to make a map that's just skills or something. So it just depends on what part that you want to do. Like you could do one for values, you could do one for interests, you could do one for personality. Like these are aspects of your personality that you know are important and that you want to be integrated in a work environment. Yeah, so it's kind of fun that you have a lot of options and different ways to do it, but just thinking through what those are is sometimes a challenge. Do I have any brave souls who want to share their map and walk us through it?
I don't mind.
Okay, great.
Let's see.
I don't know if I have the screen sharing enabled.
Share screen. Oh yeah, it's disabled.
Okay, let's see. Advanced sharing options. Okay, try it now.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
It might be too zoomed out, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so yeah, I started there.
Great.
And then these are my two majors that I'm majoring in now. So what I'm focusing on mostly in psychology is identity, and then a little bit of like social psychology and like our responsibility to each other. The research I'm doing now is in a memory research lab, which about how your memories contribute to your identity. Same thing with philosophy, just like understanding other people's arguments and perspectives and getting a foundation in historical knowledge. And the research I'm doing in the microworlds lab is looking at the lives of individuals to understand the big picture. So then I drew a connection from that to something that I value, which is helping others. And these are some of the activities that I do on campus that play into helping others. And then considering pursuing law, which has connections to helping others, and oh gosh, and philosophy and psychology. And I lost my entire map somehow.
Oh,
But,
that's okay.
But yeah.
You might just be zoomed out. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. No, I think that was definitely a great example of some activities that you're involved in, but also subjects that you're enjoying, causes that you care about, some other maybe future career paths that you thought of, and how is that kind of fitting into the overall picture, and maybe something new popped up in there as well. But I think that's a great example. Yeah. Thank you for your comments. So moving forward, what are some of your next steps? So now that you have this initial map, where are you planning on taking this map, or what do you want to do from here? Do you want to create another version? Do you need to look up some more information about a certain area? Maybe is there an opportunity that came up, or maybe a subject that came up that you want to find an experience in to actually try something out? What are some of your next steps? And you can also throw them in the chat too if you're just wanting to do it that way instead of talking.
I guess right now, since I'm an upcoming sophomore, that's sort of the time where you think about what you want to major in. So that's
Yeah, that's a great idea. So how can you apply this to maybe choosing your major? Or maybe you have some like certificate programs or some other subjects that you're looking into, and start strategizing of, could I talk to a director of undergraduate studies in that space? Or is there a faculty member I can try to connect with to learn more, or even a peer if you have a friend or someone who's in a certain major? Or it could just be looking at some of the departmental websites, checking out classes, and maybe you choose to do a map for each major that you're looking at and think through it that way. Great idea. What else?
I think for me, so I am a grad student and I will hopefully be finishing in December. So I do want to focus more on finding not necessarily my ideal job just yet, but it's more of like a very particular decision that I have to make. And so I think the next step for me would be, well, first of all, finding more information and looking up some other resources or people that can help me give more ideas. But also I think like you mentioned, like making many different maps based on like interests, skills, values, that's going to be helpful for me, because before, when I was just choosing the areas that I wanted to study, it was a lot more easier to get away with, oh, I like all of these things and all of these things are included in this area of study. So like I didn't have to think of something in a specific, but if there was a job that I would have to pick and make that very particular decision, then I do need to sort of like be very careful about how I organize my ideas and really recognize the things that I enjoy the most and that I am good at.
Yes, definitely. And I think you're hitting on a big part of whenever we feel stuck or we're not sure of our next steps. I think what tends to happen is we kind of jump into action and just start looking at options. And that's when we can get more overwhelmed, right? So a strategy we like to use is taking that time to do something like a mind map or reflection or kind of journaling to help you reset and think about what you want. So starting with you and clarifying your own goals, your own vision, your own purpose makes looking at those options so much easier, because you have something, you have like a criteria of yourself that you're kind of comparing it to, right? And it feels more authentic because you're starting with you instead of feeling like you have to fit yourself into a certain role or something like that. And I think a big part, Valeria, that you're talking about is decision making. So that is a tough process, and I would encourage you to think through some decisions that you've made in the past, and what kind of tools or strategies did you use to make those decisions, and how can you maybe incorporate some of those in this next round of decision making process for you. And keep in mind, we're scratching the surface. This is deep stuff. So if you want to work with a career advisor, you can definitely do that and set up a virtual appointment on Career Connections. If you haven't done that yet, this is a great time. I'm finding students are in a very reflective state at this point in the summer and with everything going on. So we're happy to be a thought partner for you during this time as you kind of are going through some different things. Yeah. Any other next steps that you can think of? Okay. Well, hopefully you had some tools, you learned some tools today that you can incorporate in future reflections, future maps. Maybe you even want to try using this program for a group project or something. Let's see, who could we share our mind maps with? Oh, wait, what do you mean? You want to share it with some other people?
Yeah, so it seems like a very a personal reflection of our own lives. And I was just wondering whether what are some of the occasions that we would share something like this with others? Because we make this, it would help us reflect, but I don't know, I feel like it would be kind of like my other mind map projects. I would just save it and then it will forever be up there and I just forget to check it. And it seems like I've never made that before. And I was just thinking maybe sharing it will help us keep that reflection more relevant to our current lives.
Oh, great. And definitely. So I would think about, who are the people in your life who are in your corner, who's kind of on your board of directors. So that might be people, that might be mentors, it might be faculty members, it could be someone from your community back home or parents. So anyone that you feel like if you're having these kind of conversations with them, that will help, take the conversation to the next level or help them see who you are as a person. That would be a great time to share your map. And I know out of all of the undergraduate counselors, we would be so excited to see a map if you brought it in for an appointment too, because that would give us a great starting point of, what are you interested in and who are you? But I think that's a really good idea. And even friends, right? Like that could be a fun, what's on your map? What are you thinking? It could be something that you do at the end of every semester to kind of keep yourself on track and just check in, because a lot changes, right? Like think about yourself when you started Duke and maybe where you are now. And every semester changes a little bit of what you're wanting to do. But great idea. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining me today. And please let me know if you have any questions or want to connect in the future. Again, my name is Christina Plante, and I'm happy to answer any questions for you. Yeah, I think that's all I have for today, but I hope you have a great afternoon, and I enjoyed our session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.